What's up guys, Chef B here, coming at you with another video. Tonight's video is going to be all about knife sharpening. My previous one was basically my opinion of what 3 knives every kitchen should have. Again, those knives were an 8-inch chef's knife, a serrated knife for cutting bread and tomatoes, and a small 3-inch paring knife to do very detailed tasks. I'll get a little bit more into that in the future with future videos and what have you. Tonight's all about knife sharpening, a couple different examples of that, a couple different techniques, different pieces of equipment that you can use if you are so inclined, or you can do what a lot of people do and have them sent out to be sharpened. But why, in my opinion, why should you spend money on a task that is actually, once you get the technique down, pretty easy to do yourself? Alright, let's dive down to counter view and see what kind of equipment we'll be working with. We are down at counter view. Right here we have one of my favorite pieces of equipment to use, the Chef's Choice Edge Select 120. It is one of, as I just said, one of my favorite tools to use. It is my favorite tool to use for sharpening. It has 3 different stages, 1, 2, and 3. It goes from coarse to a fine to what is called a strapping edge. Have you ever seen a old barber use a straight razor on a piece of leather? Same basic concept, except this one does it a lot faster. Anyway, the next item we have here is a whetstone. Now what this stone has is 2 different sides to it, a coarse side and a fine side. The coarse side is for basically reshaping the blade. It takes more metal off, and that's exactly what you're doing when you're sharpening a knife. You're taking metal off the blade, but you're also making it a lot more sharp. And this fine side here is kind of for getting the blade to where you want it to be. This side basically is your coarse grind, and this is your fine grind. Now, I'll show you how to use that in a minute, but what we're going to do is we're going to do a little comparison to the knives that I actually have. This right here is your standard 8-inch chef's knife. It's made out of a single piece of steel, and it is, at this particular moment, not very sharp, but we're going to fix that. Right here is the Santoku blade. I kind of touched on this in the knife video, but what I didn't know, I don't think I mentioned, was see these little scallops in the edge right here? Those are great for cutting a potato or food that is going to stick more to your blade, like cheese. It creates an air pocket so the food kind of slides off a lot easier. You're going to see that as I progress in my videos. When I do a few food demos, you'll definitely see that, because I will use this knife. It is one of my favorites. Now, let's get the whetstone set up, or the sharpening stone set up, and I will show you how to use that. Alright guys, here we go with the sharpening stone. We have it set up. Now you may have noticed I called it a whetstone as well earlier, and that's for a very key purpose. You do actually put this in water. You do have water on it while you are sharpening. That actually makes it a lot easier to sharpen a knife because there's less friction. Thus you do less damage to the knife. Now, basically, when it comes to knives, the actual edge is at a rather specific angle. On most American and German style knives, the average is about 22 degrees. So we're going to try to find close to 22 degrees. We have 90 degrees. Halfway is 45. Halfway of that is about 22. Now I know there's going to be a lot of comments probably that 22 degrees is not exactly half of 45, but it's close, and it's for the home kitchen. It's going to be quite suitable for your needs. So, as we said before, 90, 45, and roughly 22 degrees. Now what I like to do is, with a pulling motion at 22 degrees, use the entire length of the stone and the entire length of the knife. So go from edge and corner to edge and corner. Nice, even strokes. Now I typically do about 4 or 5 on each side. And that's the key. You want to have even the number of strokes and even stroking pattern for each side of the knife. That's how you're going to get a nice sharp knife. Now go from this side. Now there are several ways that you can do this. This is my preferred method, but if you find a method that works good for you, go ahead and do it. It was 4, or was that 4 or 5? I think that was 5. I did 6 before, so we're going to do 6 on that side. And as I'm doing this, I'm going to feel the very, very edge of the blade. What I'm looking for is to feel a little bit of a lip. That tells me that the knife is getting where I want it to be. And you know what? I actually just messed that up a little bit, but that's okay. I'm human, so are you. Probably. You might be a spam bot for all I know, and that's alright. I'm going to go 3 on this side just to kind of even things out, and I will continue to do it as I was before. So I had a total of 9 on the first A, side A, and I just put 9 on the side B. It's no big deal, as long as it has the same amount on each side. So that's all cool. So what I'm going to do now is go for 7 on this side. Seven on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, feeling for that burr, or the lip rather. I mean, it is sometimes called the burr as well. I call it the lip because that's kind of what it feels like. It's not very noticeable when you first start out, but as you progress in the sharpening process, you can definitely feel it. It's almost as if the blade is curved over on itself, which it actually is. Because if you take the blade at a magnified viewing, what you're actually doing, what you'll notice is that it kind of looks like that. Well, you can't really see it because it's so small, but it actually kind of folds over on itself. And that's actually a good indicator that you want to go to the next stage in the sharpening, which is the finer side. Now, let me go wet this up a little bit more, because you should keep it moderately wet while you're doing the sharpening. So I'm going to go do that, and I'll be right back. Now, as you can see, I've switched the sides. We are now on the fine side. And this is where the honing and the real sharpness will come in. Now, same process as before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to do 5 on each side to start off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See that already? That's already getting nice and sharp. I can't feel the lip yet, and that's actually quite alright, because with the fine side, if we're doing it at pretty much the same angle, you're not going to get a lot of that lip because you're not taking up nearly as much and you're not bending it over as far. That's 4 on that side. Now that's getting nice and sharp. You can see that, how shiny that blade is. It's still got a little bit more work to go, but a good factor of sharpness is actually that shine that you're going to get. Right on the top most portion of that knife. That's beautiful. Some people like going like this. I don't, because I like having the blade come towards me. That's just my preference. You can do it however you want. This is just my way of doing it. And it's worked out for me so far. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. On this side. And 1, 2 on each side. Ah, yeah, that's much sharper. That's beautiful. Hold it up for you one more time. And if I can get real close, you can see it has very small serrations, and that's actually okay. If I was doing it in the Chef's Choice knife sharpener, you wouldn't see that much because of the strapping wheel, and that'll shine it up and hone it even more. Now, the word honing is actually not to be confused with sharpening. If you ever see in your knife collection, you have a rod of steel. That's actually a honing steel and not a sharpening steel. I'll get more into that in a future video, but for right now we're just going to focus on the sharpening. Alright, now this knife with this steel is actually pretty much done. If I had a piece of leather, I would actually strap the blade. That's basically shining it up and giving it a nice polished edge. And you're actually going to see a polished edge when I break this bad boy out. Now, let me get this thing set up, and we will be back in a moment. Alright guys, here we are with the Chef's Choice 120 Plus, my favorite sharpening device of all time. Alright, now we have 3 stages here, as I showed you before. We have a first stage, which is the coarse stage, similar to the first side of that sharpening stone I just had. The second stage, similar to the second side. Now the third stage is actually strapping stage, which I mentioned before. That'll put a nice shine on the blade. And I'll actually show you this blade before I sharpen it, just so you can see what I'm talking about. And I'll do that right now. With this blade, if you can see those, I don't know how well this is going to be picked up, but if you can see the little serrations and imperfections in the actual blade itself, that's actually just from everyday use. Nothing too scary there. And this is the Nakiri, which is, I'm not sure if I mentioned this in my first video. This is basically a Japanese style knife cleaver. It's a fantastic little knife. I love using it. And it's a similar profile to the Sentuko, as it has a rather flat looking blade and is not as curved as the chef's knife. It's a great chopping knife, but that's for my knife skills video, which will actually be probably coming up in about a week or so, I hope. As soon as I have time to film it, I will put it up. Alright, here we go with the first stage. Now, it's similar to stage 1 in the fact that we are just taking off the material of the knife, of the actual blade, and I will show you how to do that. We're going to turn it on and pass the knife through it like such. And since this is a 7-inch blade, we are going to want to go for about 7 seconds. It's 1 second per inch approximately. Let's do it. Looking for that first sign of the lip. Can't quite feel it yet, but this is a relatively sharp knife, so it might take a few more passes. In fact, I'm going to do that off camera so you guys don't have to deal with the noise from this right now. I will come back in a few moments and I'll show you how the progression goes. Alright guys, here we go. Just finished with stage 1. The burr is quite pronounced, which is not surprising for this particular stage of sharpening. I wish you guys could be able to see this because the way I'm seeing it. Although if I try to do it just right, you might be able to see a slight curve in the very edge of the blade. But if you can't, that's okay. I can see it, I can feel it. It's kind of like if you have a crack in the window and you kind of put your finger on it. If the crack is going like this, you pull your finger across like that. It's similar to that kind of feeling. That's the best way that I can describe it. It's like trying to feel for a seam almost. Now we're going to move on to stage 2. Now for this one, I usually do about 7 or 8 passes, even before I start looking for the next stage of the burr or the lip. And we will do that right now. The key to this is nice, even strokes, if I haven't mentioned that yet. Sometimes what I do is I also put my hands on top. I know that kind of blocks your view of the knife, but I'm sorry about that. Just to keep even pressure along the blade and have the blade contact the wheel evenly. And the rest of this I'm going to do off camera. Stay tuned and we will be right back. Alright guys, just finished with stage 2 and it is looking beautiful. Burr is all the way along the edge of the blade as it should be. And we are about to start stage 3. Now let me show you a little close-up of how that blade is looking so far. You can get a good view on it myself. It looks like something out of a medieval movie, doesn't it, with the blade shining like that? Beautiful. Now stage 3, as I said before, is the stropping stage. And what that does is eliminates the lip, or eliminates the burr that I have on this blade right now, and it brings it to a nice, straight, very, very sharp edge. Now let's go. Probably about 5 or 6 passes on this before I start checking for the actual edge. One more pass after this one. Side A and side B. Very good. Alright, now I feel for the actual edge. Yep, not feeling a bit of the lip on that side. How about this one? Same exact thing, which is exactly what I want. Now, if you can see how smooth that the very edge of the blade is, I'm not sure how well the camera's going to pick that up, so I do apologize if you can't see it. But if you just look at that quite closely, it is beautiful. Now, you might also know that you might have also known that the knife has a certain kind of grain to it, much like wood grain. That's because this is actually a Japanese style and Japanese style made knife. Now, the Japanese style, also known as the Damascus style of knife making, is they take individual layers of steel and fold them in such a way that creates this beautiful knife pattern, the grain pattern rather. And you can look up examples of different Damascus style knives on Google. If you want to look up a very, very excellent knife maker, Bob Kramer, as B-O-B-K-R-A-M-E-R. He is fantastic. He's one of the best knife smiths in the US and quite possibly the world. His knives are beautiful. They have much more intricate designs on them. Works of art, really. But enough of that. It's not about that. What it's about is finishing up this, and we are going to do a couple more passes, and then we will go back up to FaceTime. See you guys soon. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that little demo. Just wanted to touch on a few things that I didn't mention while we were down on Counterview. The first of which being with the sharpening stone. I do sometimes take the knives that I do on the sharpening stone and actually do run them through the third stage, which is the stropping stage or the honing stage of an electric knife sharpener, simply just to get the burr the rest of the way gone, because as much as I have tried to, I simply don't have a fine enough stone to do that on, and I honestly don't use the sharpening stone nearly as much as I use the electric knife sharpener. That being said, about the electric knife sharpener, you don't necessarily have to go with the progression that I did. I just did it for that particular knife because that's what I like for that knife. The 3 stages on the knife sharpener, you don't always need to do all of them. In fact, sometimes with certain knives, I actually go from the first stage straight to the third stage. And sometimes I pass the first stage and go to the second and third only. It depends on what I want to do with the knife, and actually how dull the knife is. It's completely up to you on your preference, your style. It's really up to you. It's completely customizable with the 3-stage knife sharpener. And in my opinion, it actually gives you a better edge than when the knives were purchased from the store. I will have another really short knife review video just detailing the knives that I like to use in my own home kitchen and at work as well. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, let's keep on cooking. Chef B out.